Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch Transfer Roundup. So we've got a bit to get through in this one. There's actually been quite a few moves compared to the last video, so that's nice to see. And we've got some very interesting moves to go through as well at certain teams. So the majority of this is in Contenders, and we have seen a few moves in the Overwatch League. I think one move actually, but it's a move out of the league, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So, we are starting off in NA Contenders, where we see Square One getting rid of 2 players. This is them letting go of the Dutch support player Lucer and the Canadian DPS player Dimes. They will no longer be assigned, and they will be looking for teams ahead of the new Contenders 2020 Season 2. And obviously, trials start very, very soon for Contenders in both Europe and NA as well. So that's going to be super, super interesting to get back into that. And Square One are preparing themselves for that new season. So now we've got some moves at Second Wind. So we had the news way back now actually about, Vancouver Titans picking up a bit of the Second Wind roster. And one of those people was the manager of Second Wind, Justin, the American manager of Second Wind. And he had currently been two-way. He was manager of Second Wind and Vancouver Titans, and he's now moved permanently to the Vancouver Titans, leaving Second Wind. So that is obviously a move that you would kind of expect. I wouldn't expect anyone taking on 2 roles with an Overwatch League team involved. You don't really see that at all. But sticking with Second Wind, they have let go of 4 players, all American. This is the support player Juby, the tank player Higan, and the 2 DPS players, Iced and Caden. They will all be leaving Second Wind, and Second Wind as a team will be disbanding. Is this a surprise, considering a lot of their management and coaches have been sniped by the Vancouver Titans? Probably not. So, yeah, this is unfortunate, isn't it? And Second Wind were not a bad team in NA by any means. So this is another big team disappearing from the NA scene, and there's another spot open. It's obviously probably going to be filled by a new Open Division team coming up, and I hope there is some really good, interesting teams coming up over in Division in NA, because there's some big gaps to fill. Over the past year or so, we've lost a lot of good teams, and I hope it gets filled with some really cool teams, some different teams. But moving on. So we're going to take a brief pop over to Korea, where we see the coach Young of Blossom leaving the team, and he will no longer be assigned. Blossom are going to take part in Open Division Season 3 in Korea. They haven't really hit the ground like they wanted to. Blossom have got a little bit of history in Korea, so I'd like to see them do well in this up-and-coming Korean season, and it's going to be very interesting because we're going back to this more league-based, table-based format rather than the knockouts all the time, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting season in Korea, and I hope Blossom can do well and replace this coach with someone they see fit. But the depressing news comes through again, doesn't it? Now, we heard the other day that the Pacific region was not going to be renewed for the Season 2 of Contenders this year. And so there is no Contenders in the Pacific. So teams like Indian teams and Japanese teams and people like that, they don't really have anywhere to go right now in terms of Overwatch, high-level Overwatch competitive tournaments. Even though Blizzard said they were going to create something, there's no information on it right now. So all of these teams are left in limbo, and what that normally means is that these teams will disband, and this is the case for the Japanese team Green Leaves. They will be disbanding, letting go of their entire roster. The coach Yuk, the 2 supports Zerafi and Qloud, their tanks Poki and Scenario, and the 2 DPS players 50 and 10, all Japanese obviously, and they will be leaving the Overwatch scene. Green Leaves will be disbanding. After a long time, Green Leaves have been around for a while. But, yeah. Is this any surprise? The way that Pacific Contenders has just been dropped, they've got nowhere to compete. And this is what happens. But I wish all of these players all the best, and I'd love to see a Japanese Overwatch League team at some point. That would be really awesome. But I do wish them all the best, and hopefully we can see some competitive tournaments in the Pacific region that allow these players to flourish, because there are some really good players in that region. But talking of the Pacific region, and not so specifically anymore, remember Talon Esports? Well, Talon Esports aren't going anywhere because they were the winners of the Pacific region in this season 1. They have been granted access to Korean Contenders trials, and so they are kitting out for a much, much bigger test this season, going up against the likes of Runaway and Element Mystic, O2 Blast, Gen G. There's some crazy teams in Korea, and Talon Esports are going to have to hold their own with them. They did well in the gauntlet last year, but Talon Esports are used to domination in the Pacific, and they are not going to get that in Korea. But they are adding to their roster to try and compete. This is 3 Korean players. 1 support, who is Karong, or Chorong? Karong or Chorong? We'll see. The tank player Jangu, and the DPS player Feather. They will all be joining up with Talon Esports, and I do hope that Talon Esports can hold their own at least. I don't want to see them get completely boomed in Korea. I don't think they will, but they aren't going to be the dominant force that they were in the Pacific. They will know this, but if they can somehow hang around with the likes of Runaway and Element Mystic, O2 Blast, Gen G, I don't know whether Lucky Future is still competing now. That would be amazing if they were managed to do that. So yeah, I do wish all the best to Talon Esports, because they've just kind of been, the whole of the Pacific region just been kind of left out to dry. So I hope they do well. But sticking in Korea, we are going to talk about OZ Gaming, or you Americans would say OZ Gaming. So they have let go of their tank player. This is, I don't know how to say this name. So I do apologize, but Dawan Smooth is how I'm going to say it. Because actually that actually sounds really nice, Dawan Smooth. That's a really nice name, by the way. So they're going to let go of that player, and he will no longer be assigned and be looking for a team. And they're going to bring in a bunch of players from Batlicker. Now, Batlicker are a team that did incredibly well in Korean Contenders this year, but they got through to the playoffs. They did well, and then they disbanded after the playoffs, and very often that happens. So all of these players were looking for a team, and it looks like OZ Gaming are going to pick up a bunch of them. So they're going to pick up 2 tanks, this is Melon and Free, and the 2 DPS players, Catalyst and Checkmate. They are all going to go from Batlicker to OZ Gaming. They are also going to bring in an academy coach coming in from Batlicker. This is the tank player Spear. So he was a tank player for Batlicker. He will now be the academy coach for OZ Gaming, and I wish him all the best. That Batlicker team was really good. Really good. And it was a massive surprise coming up and just shocking a lot of big teams in Korea. Like the old hats, like Element Mystic, O2 Blast and Runaway. They didn't know what hit them. So, yeah, super interesting. And anything that, you know, slightly disrupts the top teams in Korea, it's always going to be a big eye opener, is what I'm trying to say. And I can't wait to see what these players do in the future, and I'm glad that they have found a team where they can compete still in Korean Contenders. But we're moving over to the EU now, and 2 players let go from 2 different teams. So this is HSL Esports letting go of the French tank player Julo. He will no longer be with them and will be looking for a team. Now, this one is incredibly interesting to me. This one really caught my eye. This is the Finnish support player Yofi, who will be leaving the British Hurricane and will no longer be assigned. This is interesting. So Yofi was a backbone for this British Hurricane team that have dominated EU Contenders this year so far. He has got a lot of history as well in EU Contenders, so I was very surprised he's leaving a team that have literally just pummeled the EU region this year. So I don't know what Yofi's plans are. He's still active, he's not retired. Whether he's got a team who is interested in him, I don't know. But as of time of recording, he is unassigned, and it seems very weird that he would be unassigned, leaving a team that is so successful right now. Either British Hurricane didn't want him anymore, which I would be very surprised about, or he has got interest. And I would assume if it's interest from another team, it would have to be an Overwatch League team, because I don't see why he would leave a team like British Hurricane right now if it wasn't interest from somewhere like the Overwatch League. So I do hope Yofi is getting something like that. But that's all I know right now. He's left the British Hurricane, which is interesting, and it'll be interesting to see who British Hurricane replace him with. Didn't expect British Hurricane to be losing players. But we have some moves back in NA. This is at the Uprising Academy. The Uprising Academy want to make some changes, try and compete in that NA region. They are the only Academy team left. Would you believe it? Uprising Academy, of all people, are the only ones left. But they have brought in the French support player, Dridro. He is coming in. He wasn't assigned before that. And I wish him all the best. And they're also transferring the Israeli DPS player, Wayfast, from Raspberry Racers. Now, Wayfast was on this Raspberry Racers lineup that went all the way to the final of European Contenders Season 1 this year against British Hurricane and lost 4-1. But Wayfast is a really good player, and I hope he does well for the Uprising Academy. And we'll see if Uprising Academy improve, because they were improving towards the end of the Contenders Season 1 of this year, and it'll be interesting to see if they can really push on in Season 2, because a lot of people are going to be looking up to try and dethrone Team Doge, who will be coming up in a minute. But we're going to move over to Karasuno now, who have let go of the American tank player Nitch. I'm going to say it's Nitch, not Nick, but yeah, he's going to be unassigned. And again, Karasuno going through a little bit of a rebuild, not achieving quite what they wanted to this season. Then we move over to Sheer Cold in Europe, actually. And this is the Chinese coach LNLD. I can't say that name for some reason. LNLD. I've had several takes at this, believe it or not. But he was assistant coach at Sheer Cold, and he still is assistant coach at Sheer Cold, but he'll also be taking on the role as head coach at Kraken Esports Club. Now, Kraken Esports Club currently have a spot in Australian Contenders. They've been knocking around the Australian Contenders trials, a bit in the Contenders region as well. And he will be head coach for that team and assistant coach for Sheer Cold at the same time. We've seen an instance like this before. I can't remember which coach it was, but some coaches do take on the same or similar roles at two different teams in different regions. So yeah, this is super duper interesting. But I did say we were coming to Team Doge, and this is where we see a very interesting signing involving the Overwatch League. So we know the rebuild that's been going on at the Washington Justice of recent. I suppose that's a saying. Of course, they've just beaten the Los Angeles Gladiators at time of recording. A little bit, well, last night they beat the Los Angeles Gladiators. Great win for them in the Summer Showdown. But they have brought in, obviously, Janu and Stitch and all this, and they've decided to go full Korean. And this means they let go of Ellivote, their off-tank, who we have seen featuring for them a lot through this season. They kind of dumped on a lot of their non-Korean people, not just the players, but also backroom staff as well. Ellivote was unassigned then, and I didn't think it would be long before Ellivote found a team, because Ellivote is a fantastic off-tank. Like, he's really good, and he didn't get a chance to shine at the Washington Justice, but Team Doge have been like, yoink, thank you very much, I'll take a really good off-tank, and Ellivote will be turning out for Team Doge in NA Contenders this year, and I wish him all the best, because he is still a really good off-tank, and he's with a really good team in Team Doge here. So, yeah, I think he will do super well. And the last thing I would like to see sorted out at the Washington Justice is Lolshish. He is stuck in Washington Justice prison right now. I'd like to see him freed. Just sign another player, Justice. Get rid of Lolshish. Let him go and play somewhere else. I mean, you've already done a fantastic job at splitting up Lolshish and Ellivote, who were a tank partnership from Europe, and they did so well. Not only at they were Angry Titans, I believe, and then they went to Team Envy. They were so good, and you've split them up. It's such a shame, but yeah, I wish Ellivote all the best at Team Doge. I really hope he does well. But then we move over to Dreadlords in Europe, and they had a substitute Pakistani support player called Afil. I think that's how you say that. He will no longer be assigned. He is leaving that team, and I wish him all the best for the future. This is a lot of moves out actually. So Sheer Cold, we're seeing them let go of two players. This is both support players, one Dutch support player Ange and the German support player Sukrax. They will both be leaving Sheer Cold and will be unassigned. Triumph will be letting go of their Israeli coach, Fragon. He will be leaving, obviously Triumph, and will no longer be assigned. Sydney Drop Bears will be letting go of 3 players. This is 3 DPS players actually, so 1 Chinese DPS player, BRS, and 2 Australian DPS players, Nahimi and Winter. So Sydney Drop Bears, they've been that cut below in Australian contenders this year, mainly below Mind Freak and Ground Zero Gaming, and they're going to want to free up some slots in their team to try and get in some players that so they can compete at the very, very top of Australian contenders. And I wish them all the best for that. And we'll see if someone can dethrone Mind Freak, actually, because it's Mind Freak who are on top right now. But moving back to EU, and we see 2 people let go at HSL Esports. This is the British coach Love Monkey, who will no longer be assigned, and also the Swedish DPS player I Like Cows, who will also be unassigned after leaving HSL Esports as well. And we've seen HSL actually get rid of a lot of people in this video, but it's time they picked up some people, isn't it? So they will be signing the Finnish support player Snap from Dreadlords. He will be turning out for HSL Esports. And also they will be bringing in 3 unassigned people. This is the American coach Seven, the British tank player ADM, and the Swiss DPS player Sir Gibson. They will all be coming into HSL Esports and turning out for them in this new Contenders EU season for Season 2. And I wish them all the best. HSL will be in trials. Were they in Open Division? I actually can't remember. But they had a tough season in Season 1. And I hope they can turn it around in Season 2. Former European Contenders champions, obviously. Now, we mentioned Nick or Nitch. I'm going to go with Nitch earlier. He left Karasuno. He's a American tank player. He will be coming in at Revival. So Revival, I don't think they really lived up to expectations this season. I thought they would do better, but there's been a lot of moving around in American Contenders, and so a lot of teams haven't been able to settle. We expected Sky Foxes to do a lot better, and they ended up disbanding in the end because there was so much disruption to them. But I wish Nitch all the best at Revival, and Revival all the best for this coming Contenders season. Then remember the Korean DPS player Munchkin? Remember that name? Obviously had time at the Seoul Dynasty, and he also had time at Boston, I believe, as well. He was a Lucky Future. Now, Lucky Future had spent a bit of money coming into Korean Contenders to try and compete at the very, very top alongside Runaway, etc. And it didn't really work for them. And it turns out that Munchkin will no longer be with Lucky Future. He is actually retiring from Overwatch. This is a shame. I think he is moving over to Valorant. I might be getting mixed up with another player, but I think he is moving over to Valorant. And again, it's a shame to see him go, but I think there are some people that are coming to the end of their tenures with Overwatch. Munchkin is one of them. He didn't have much success at Seoul Dynasty. He didn't have anything at Boston, and it really hasn't worked for him at Lucky Future. So where does he go from there? That's the question. And another player, and he's not on this list, but another player to mention is Flower, that we spoke about a few weeks ago. He was good in the Korean World Cup at one point, or Korean World Cup, or the World Cup for Korea at one point. He was okay at XL2. He went to NYXL, did nothing. He then went to Runaway and did nothing and got dropped from Runaway, and now he's in Limbo as well. So that's another player I expect to hear something from soon, whether he's retiring or going to try and give it another go at another team. But more movements at Karasuno. This is 2 people going out. This is their tank player, their American tank player Cowman at 7-11. He will be leaving Karasuno and be no longer assigned. And also, the Finnish DPS player Ricky will be leaving Karasuno and will be unassigned. I'm sure you might remember Ricky from being the May player at Clockwork Vendetta, when Clockwork Vendetta were making waves in EU Contenders. And yeah, I miss Clockwork Vendetta, not gonna lie. Can you come back, Clockwork, at some point? But we have a movement in the now defunct Pacific region. So this is the British coach Pirate Flag. He was with Global Esports, and obviously Global Esports did compete in the Pacific region of Contenders that doesn't exist anymore. Global Esports haven't disbanded, so maybe they are looking into competing in whatever tournaments that Blizzard or someone thinks up, and then Blizzard funds or whatever Blizzard are deciding to do in that region. But Pirate Flag is moving to Hype Unit. Now, Hype Unit compete in NA Contenders, most recently Trials, and this will be an interesting move. I wish Pirate Flag all the best, being a fellow British person. I do appreciate it. And I wish Hype Unit all the best for the up-and-coming Contenders Season 2 in NA. And lastly, we finish at Square One, which we actually started this video at, which is a really nice way to round things off, isn't it? But Square One did let go of 2 players earlier on, and we're going to see them sign up 2 players here. 2 American players, 1 support, Ultraviolet, and 1 DPS, King. So they will both be coming in to Square One. Ultraviolet, he's been around the block a bit. We've seen him at Second Win, Montreal Impact, Square One. So actually, yeah, he's back at Square One now. I just realized that just as I was saying it. So he's back at Square One again, and King is coming in from most recently Simplicity, but he's also had time with Sky Foxes in Phase 2. So that rounds us off for this transfer roundup. It's been a little bit of a lengthy one. I do apologise for that, but it's good that we got through it all. And I will be back for another video tomorrow. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.